analyst Laura Barron-Lopez, and former press advisor to former Speaker John Boehner, Maura Gillespie. Thank you all for being here. Maura, let's start with you. Sure. So it went the whole way this time. But Boehner faced a similar moment. It wasn't brought to the floor, right?
Right.
But he faced a rebellion. He lasted a couple of months and then leaves. Your thoughts as we watch this going full force today and where it leaves us? I mean, you worked for him, right? You are a conservative who believes in the cause, and now there is no Speaker of the House.
It's a really different situation when John Boehner was retiring. He had wanted to retire before that all happened in 2015 when Eric Cantor lost his primary to David Brat. Boehner realized he had to stick around for a little longer, but he had always intended to retire by the end of the year, so it is a little bit different. But Democrats were not here when the vote was called back when Boehner was there because they were up for Mario Cuomo's funeral. So it's a bit different situation, right? But it's hard for me to sit here and not think about the times I spent walking up to this building with awe and reverence and appreciation for this building. It makes me really question where we are right now in terms of our government, our politics. I mean, I thought January 6th was rock bottom. This may be rock bottom. We had a congressman who is accused of sleeping with a minor, who is under ethics investigations, just made history last night by ousting the Speaker of his own party with the help of Democrats, and he ran to the cameras to go fundraise off of it, has no plan. And I think we kind of need to look at that situation and be like, where are we now? Where do we go from here? We have got a President Trump who is 4 times indicted, 91 federal counts against him, and he's running for a re-election another time against a president who is, quite frankly, like struggling just to get one foot in front of the other. Like, how is this where we are right now in Congress? I can't help but think back to my time with Boehner and wish that we had some adults in the room because this feels like rock bottom.
But Laura, I think what's interesting, the adults aren't here anymore, if you want to use kind of your framing of things, because of exactly what actually came to fruition yesterday. You know, the cover of the book, The Young Guns, Eric Cantor lost a primary. Boehner was not a young gun. Paul Ryan decided to leave because he was just kind of over it. And Kevin McCarthy now has been deposed as well. The entire generation of new republicanism that was supposed to take over the mantle is gone. And what they've been replaced with, the House is always a messy institution, but this is a different level.
It is a different level. And, part of why they're gone, Paul Ryan also wasn't really able to manage this growing extreme faction within the House GOP, and Boehner wasn't either. And so that's why Paul Ryan is gone. He now talks about that he doesn't always agree with the direction that his party is headed in. He doesn't support the standard bearer, Donald Trump, would prefer someone else be at the top of the presidential ticket. But when push comes to shove, Kevin McCarthy decided to, time and time again, make decisions that emboldened that hard-right faction and decided to make it so they could only have one person bring the motion to vacate. And even, yesterday during his meeting with the caucus or the conference, when he decided to say, I'm not going to run for Speaker again, the fact that he said, I'm not going to sell my soul to the Democrats pretty much shows that he was far more willing to time and again do what the extreme Republicans wanted versus even just negotiate a little bit with Democrats to stay in the speakership.
One thing that strikes me is that the 8 people who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy were the same people who on Friday, when the speaker was offering them, and not, every single member, but it's generally the same group of people who, when the speaker was offering them this short-term spending bill with 30% cuts over domestic spending areas, didn't take it. Border security.
Ukraine.
I could not have thought of a more conservative short-term spending bill. They said no to it. What other choice does the speaker have? And his allies had been arguing he wanted to keep the government open. He wasn't willing to shut down the government, knowing that to get out of a shutdown, he was going to just have to have a short-term spending bill that the chamber across the way, the United States Senate, was going to pick up and take.
Well, we talked about this before, but for people who are just joining us, what do they need to know this morning about what this now means? There's, for the first time in American history, no Speaker of the House. They're gone for a week now, and they're going to come back and maybe figure it out. What does that mean if there is a crisis in this country, if there is a disaster, in terms of how paralyzed this is?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things we know and a lot of things we don't. One of the things we know is that Patrick McHenry, who is the interim speaker at the moment, he has very limited power. Basically, he can run a speaker's race. That's what he can do on the floor of the House. They can't pass legislation. They can't avoid a government shutdown. There are some open questions about how committees function, if they can function. Technically, they think the answer is no, they cannot. But then you had people like Comer saying yesterday that he wants to continue fighting to investigate for the impeachment inquiry. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's a very strange spot to be in, having covered this institution for nearly a decade now and not know the answer to every single question. But I think there's a lot of parliamentarian...
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, there's a lot of parliamentarian experts inside this building who are going to be looking through their notes to understand whether or not they can do X, Y, or Z, because we are in an unprecedented moment. We are in a historic place right now. And I just think it bears reminding the American people that there's a lot of smart people here, but we don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it was our institution fact wizard, Kristen Wilson, who was sending over that McHenry's technically not in the line of succession right now because he's pro tem, that he can't even adjourn the House without Senate consent if it's for more than 3 days. It's a very weird period. What do they want? Right? Lauren makes, I think, the most critical point here. They offered a top line that was a dramatic 30% cut to a CR and a dramatically conservative border security bill and no Ukraine aid, and they voted to get, they wouldn't do it. What do these 8 lawmakers want? What are their principles? What are their driving forces from conservative side?
They want to have something to fight against. That's what they know how to do. It's what the MAGA Republicans have done before they were MAGA Republicans, right? We were the Republican Study Committee when John Boehner was in the speakership. They moved the goalpost. He gives them what they want, they move the goalpost because it doesn't serve their purpose. They don't actually have a plan. If they were put in charge, if they were given real leadership positions, they would not know the first thing to do with themselves. So it's easier to fight the fight and fight the man and fundraise off of that, which you're seeing. Nancy Mace had her whole statement with a huge fundraising email. Matt Gaetz has been fundraising all weekend with his media blitz.
Nancy Mace, I don't know if we have that sound, we might not have time, but Nancy Mace also had very specific reasons as to why she voted the way she did. She said Kevin McCarthy did not follow through on her rape kit bill, et cetera, things that she had been promised.
With a big donate now.
I'm
donate
aware she
here.
fundraised it off it. I
That's
just
the
wanted to
thing.
point out
But
what
I
she
think
said.
people are frustrated that they're not getting anything done because everyone is coming into Congress thinking that if I don't get my way 100% of the time, I'm not going for it. That's not what we send members of Congress to go do. They have to work across the aisle. They have to work with their fellow members and to continue to vote for people and put people in power that are solely there for themselves and looking out for number one, and that's it. Shame on us. We need to vote in our primaries. We need to get involved because this is what we are left with, an empty speaker's office.
Just so interesting because I think about what our kids